Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
It is 12:21 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The US government has imposed sanctions on Sudan's de facto President General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, accusing him of destabilizing the country. Last week, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the paramilitary group fighting the army, was also sanctioned. The U.S. accused Dagalo's rapid support forces of committing genocide during the conflict. To discuss this further, we are joined on the line by Dr. David Matsanga, political analyst, political scientist and an international relations expert and conflict resolution expert. Dr. Matsanga, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update in this new year.
Happy New Year to you, Lulu. Happy New Year to all of you in the studios in South Africa.
Now, Dr. Matsanga, Happy New Year to you too. And, getting straight into it, this is not the first set of sanctions that have been placed on Sudan and its leaders. But what makes this time around different to the others?
First of all, this is a very good sign for our lobby and our publicity and our cry. We have called out the two generals several times. I have done so in all meetings. I've been in Geneva. I have everywhere I've gone in African Union. I've called upon them to come down on the table and get talking, to have dialogue. This is a great sign that right now it will force them to come to table. And don't forget, I have also equally gone another way. I have filed an application with the Office of the Chief Prosecutor of International Criminal Court as another step to ask the Chief Prosecutor to investigate the crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide that's taking place in that country, Sudan.
And I was coming to that, Dr. Matsanga. What I'd like to know now is what sort of action is going to take place, and in terms of timeframes, what response did you get from the ICC, and with regards to the reaction also from these leaders, because there must be some sort of reaction from them with everything that's happening.
Of course, the leaders are not very happy, are not very with the sanctions that have been leveled on them or put on them by America. First of all, they sanctioned the first leader, and I complained again. I wrote again to the Americans and I stood up and I said, no, both leaders must come for trial. Both leaders must be put under sanctions. Because crimes have been committed on both sides. It is up to a competent court, a competent investigation that can decide who was committing more or less. But at the moment, all the crimes, for them to be pushed, my approach, my strategy of going to the ICC, which I have done and filed and accepted, my application is inside there, and the Chief Prosecutor is looking at it with all the evidence that I've given, put every area where crimes, where the children are, where the women are, and where they cannot approach, that cannot be delivered. I have put all the evidence before the Chief Prosecutor, and I believe right now he is entitled to do, because Sudan is already under United Nations Security Council resolution that any time the Chief Prosecutor can invoke any action and go in and get anyone. Therefore, the earlier these two generals agree to be on the table, the better for them. If they don't, things are going to be worse and worse.
Will these sanctions bring an end to the conflict in Sudan?
They might not bring an end to the conflict, but they will accelerate the discussions. They will bring people on the table. Remember when we were negotiating the Uganda peace process of Konyi and the government of Uganda. I was the chief negotiator and the mediator and the leader of the delegation, because the NRA could not come on table simply because they were already under indictment of the ICC warrants. Therefore, when they heard about the indictment, the generals, the NRA themselves commanders came on table. They decided to come and sit and talk and tell us their grievances and tell us what they want and tell us what they intend and when they intend to stop and agree to a ceasefire. These two people in Sudan, none of them have agreed to a ceasefire. They break the ceasefire as soon as the ink dries on the paper. It is broken. So this sanction will help them, will give them a warning shot, will alert them that things are not as usual. They will not be able to travel. They will not be able to fly around. If the ICC ones come and the summons that are there can now be effected by the people's state, we might bring an end to the suffering of the people of Sudan.
Now, Sudan's foreign ministry has come out and stated that this decision of sanctions against the leaders, especially the armed forces commander, reading verbatim, is a great disrespect to the Sudanese people.
Then why doesn't he come to table? Let them come to table. We have IGAD has tried to mediate. IGAD AU has told them to come to table. One of them comes, the other one doesn't come. So how long are we going to wait? How long shall we wait when people are dying? 12 million people, Lulu. 12 million people are displaced. 4 million have children. They don't have food. They don't have shelter. They don't have a basic needs, medicine. What can we do? We can't keep on waiting, and the Sudan foreign minister keeps on telling us it is not good, it's not good. What about the people who are suffering in Khartoum, in Darfur, in all areas of Sudan? What do we do? Do we sit and watch? We are not going to sit and watch. No. They have to come to table. If they don't come to table, let them see the bite of these sanctions. The second phase of the sanctions on ICC are on the way. I've put the papers, the documents in the Hague. If they don't turn up, it will be a foreign state. I advise them as my friends, turn up on table, sit down on table, no differences. That is what we want. Tell us why you are fighting. Africa does not need people. It is the sickness that we have in African Union, Lulu. A poor African Union Commission chairman who cannot even call such a meeting and take tough stance. That's why we want to elect a good new chairman, Raila Amolo Odinga of Kenya, who can call these generals, sit on table, so that they can negotiate and bring peace in Sudan.
Dr. Matsanga, very quickly in 16 seconds, I can't speak to you and not touch on the Israeli-Gaza deal that is meant to come into effect on Sunday after the signing, but President Netanyahu delaying a cabinet vote. Your thoughts? We've been chatting about this for a while now.
I told you at the beginning of conflict one, almost in 2023, I told you, my sister, it will end up as a frozen conflict. You remember those words? I told you, it is a frozen conflict. Have you seen how it has ended up as a frozen conflict? Over 46,000 people are dead.
Yes.
And the others, about 2,000 to 3,000 on the Israel side, are dead. Now, you see what it is? I told you. I predicted this. I'm not an angel near Gabriel or an angel near Elisha or Elijah. I'm not none of those. But I knew I have studied international dynamics of the Middle East. I told you that it will end up in a conflict, a frozen conflict.
Dr. Matsanga, and that you did.
Itself in it, it has to be prepared to get the consequences of a frozen conflict. And two, I made it very clear it would be very difficult for any court in the world to give a judgment on such a conflict which ends up frozen. It is the same to Ukraine. It is the same to Gaza Street. It is sorry that we have lost over 46,000 people. Very sorry state. That is not, should have not been there.
Dr. Matsanga, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's Dr. David Matsanga, a political scientist and international relations expert and conflict resolution expert, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Tralani. Headlines up